It's amazing just how this all happened. I was just 2 years old when Freddie Frith won that first World Championship race at the 1949 TT on the Isle of Man. Not that anybody on our house would have noticed. There weren't even any motorcycle riders, let alone racers, in our family. My dear old dad was sports mad. He earmarked me to open the batting and play scrum half for England the moment I emerged into the world at the Radcliffe Infirmary in Oxford. I didn't even open the batting for Magdalen College School's second team, although I loved cricket and played for 50 years. And I soon realised I preferred playing football to rugby. Sorry, Dad. I grew up in the village of Cumnor near Oxford. I was a happy local boy who suffered from such acute homesickness that as a teenager on holiday with my mates, I would send a postcard back home to my mum and dad every day. But I ended up with a dream job that took me around the world for 38 wonderful years would seem impossible to that young lad. Playing sport and supporting the local football team Oxford United from the infamous London Road Terrace were big parts of growing up. But it was on Saturday afternoon, sitting in our lounge, watching scrambling on the old black and white television when motorcycles first grabbed my attention. There was not a family gene in my body that suggested any interest in two wheels, but my love of motorcycles and racing in particular had been sparked. I discovered Speedway at Cowley Stadium, and then, soon after a visit to Mallory Park, I watched road racing and heard the piercing scream of real horsepower for the first time. I plodded through my teenage years, never worrying about my future and enjoying myself. Motorcycles and football dominating my spare time. Perhaps predictably, then I left Magdalen College School in 1964 with 1 O-level after 2 pretty pathetic attempts. And I only achieved such academic honours because the history master told us what questions to revise, and he chose the right 3. A friend of my parents offered me a job as a clerk in a local solicitor's office, a role which I was supremely unsuited. I spent most of my time thinking about my next visit to the Isle of Man, ignoring the brown folders mounting on my desk. And I was told I couldn't attend meetings with important clients on account my hair being too long. My next job, working behind the counter in a sports shop, was altogether more suitable. I supplemented my income working as a disc jockey in the evenings before I moved on to become the South of England rep for a Manchester-based sports company. Then, out of the blue at the end of 1972, an offer came that was to change my life. I'd come straight from Thursday night football training to the posh house of local bigwig Tony Rosser up the Banbury Road. He was starting a new project, a local free newspaper that was to be called the Oxford Journal, and he wanted me to become his distribution manager. I thanked him but said I was happy selling football boots and training shoes. He then offered me 3 times my current salary, and needless to say, I joined the Oxford Journal 2 weeks later. We'd always loved newspapers, radio and sport in our house. Years earlier, I produced my own handwritten newspaper with pictures glued on and would commentate to my dad on rugby matches at Iffley Road in Oxford. I'd never forgotten those early days, but deep down, I honestly believed the opportunity would never arrive. I assume the highlight of any journalism career would have been back when our headmaster, Eric Brodie, had pinned my report on the Cumnor Primary School versus Dunmore game to the classroom notice board. But, lo and behold, it was not long before an opportunity came to write a sports column for the back page of the paper. Just 24 hours after a pretty routine Monday morning for the distribution manager, scooping up wet, dumped newspapers from among the used syringes and dog shit under Donington Bridge, I found myself on my first ever jet plane flight, sitting alongside a Scottish international footballer who'd scored against England at Wembley. Out of the blue, I was being sent to Italy to report on Bologna versus Oxford United in the 1973 Anglo-Italian Cup. On getting back from the airport a few days later, I was met by Tony Adamson from BBC Radio Oxford, who asked me if I'd give up playing football on Saturday afternoons to come into their studio to read the football results and make the tea.